welcome in. It is Big Ten Today on this Friday. We are presented by Gatorade, Dave Revson, Andy Katz. We have a full slate this weekend, every team in action.
And we've got one on Friday night.
Yes.
A big one.
Yes. I'm including Friday as the weekend. Right?
Yes.
Because otherwise it would technically not be true, and I'm trying to create a narrative here.
Standalone game.
Big
on
weekend.
Friday night for the
which I think is good. It's an excellent game.
Yes.
It should be really good. Wisconsin and Michigan State tonight. Let's get right to it. Here's our big story. It is not complicated.
That was a segue right for you.
It is the weekend of hoops. Here we go. Friday night in Madison, right there. Michigan State, Wisconsin, that's on FS1. We have a triple header tomorrow, Nebraska, Maryland, Minnesota, Penn State, Ohio State, Northwestern. Fox has Indiana, Illinois. FS1 has Iowa in Ann Arbor. And then one game on Sunday, Rutgers hosting Purdue on Fox. Let's start with tonight. Michigan State has righted the ship, 3 straight wins. They got an impressive victory. They went into Maryland and won. Now, can you go to Wisconsin and knock off the Badgers? What do you make of this one?
Well, first off, let's go back in our time capsule. If I told you back in early November, before the James Madison game, that here in
before the season.
So before the season, right, that it would be Wisconsin in first place and Michigan State desperate for a road win, would you have believed me?
I mean,
no,
once been a stretch to say Wisconsin was going to be in first place.
I still think it would have might.
You think so? Okay.
Yes, I think, there were a lot of questions.
Right. No,
we didn't know about A.J. Storr.
I would agree.
We didn't know about Blackwell and all
right.
that.
Yes, so I will concede.
Yes.
I would be surprised. If you would have said one of them would be in first place and one would really need a win, choose one or the other, I would have said this scenario you pointed out.
But here's where we are.
Okay.
First time they played, Michigan State was a train wreck. And Wisconsin, that was coming off when the Badgers were starting to figure things out. They're going for their first in-season sweep of Michigan State since 2004.
Yeah.
That's how rare it is for the Badgers to beat Michigan State in the same season. For Wisconsin, I think there are 2 players that we don't talk about enough that have really transformed this team. One is Max Klesmit, who I think is the glue guy in this league.
I think we've been talking about him a lot last couple
of weeks. And you've had him on the show.
Yes. He's a great guest, by the way.
Yes, he was. Yeah. Last 5 games, over 17 points a game, shooting 68% on threes, 62% overall, and arguably one of their best defenders. We saw that in that Ohio State game against Jamison Battle. And Stephen Krall, he has been that anchor in the middle.
Right.
But an aspect of his game that is not discussed is his passing.
Yeah.
184 assists, which is almost the most of a 7-footer. The last time someone eclipsed that was Frank Kaminsky with 188. So he could become this is a very nuanced, in the weeds stat, but the best Big Ten 7-footer assist maker. And he's going to get it this season.
And I think their system has a lot to do with it, right?
Yes.
I mean, the way that they play, where they invert the centers spend so much time at the top of the key and in the high post, and that's part of, you have to be able to do that, right? To be able to play center for them. It's part of the brilliance of their system.
And so you add those 2 guys to the influx of Storr and Blackwell, who have really taken this team to another level. Wall's playing his best basketball of his career. That's taken a lot of pressure off of Chucky Hepburn and Connor Segan, who obviously has not been playing as much, but he's not even feeling that pressure. This is a team that I think for sure, in the right matchups, could go pretty far in March.
Yeah.
Really far.
I'm with
and
you.
They're going to be on February 17th, when the top 16 is revealed by the NCAA, they're going to be on those top 4 lines, which is another thing we wouldn't have predicted at the beginning of the season. As for Michigan State, they've turned it around. Tom Izzo told the 2 of us a Sunday ago that they're ready to go on a roll. They're on the roll. But this was one of those games that you said that they were not favored to win.
It's the only one. Right, it was the only one.
Yeah,
when we were there, it was 11 of the next 12, and this is the only one.
Before, I think they played Purdue in March.
Yeah.
So, this is the one that sort of, if you lose this, that's okay on the road, as long as you pick it back up. And one thing I'll just say about Michigan State, I think the one player who really could take them to another level that has not played his best basketball is Jaden Akins.
Yeah. No, I would agree. And Tyson Walker has played his best basketball.
Yes.
He's been incredible. Their backcourt, it's going to be about, how far their backcourt can take him. And I think you would agree also, because I know you've talked a lot about him in the times we've been together. Malik Hall, kind of had to be better, and he has been better here over these last few games. But yeah, this is a really big test for them, and I think a really interesting game for both of these teams. Let's move ahead to tomorrow. We got a full day of hoops, and we kind of already gave you the games, but this just gives you a sense of the timing here on the network. Noon Eastern, Nebraska, Maryland, then Minnesota, Penn State, then Ohio State, Northwestern. We do have a tip-off show, 11:30 a.m. Eastern. It's tomorrow, only on the Big Ten Network and the Fox Sports app. Let's start with the last of those games. I'm going to be in Evanston, Northwestern, and Ohio State. The Cats coming off a huge high, that win over Illinois. I think you could say Ohio State's getting to a point, Andy, where they are a little desperate. What do you make of the matchup here?
So Ohio State got that victory over Penn State, sort of avenging that horrible loss for them where they blew an 18-point lead on the road. And the Buckeyes, unfortunately, when you look at some of their non-conference wins, the one over Alabama.
That holds up.
That has held up. And that's going to give them, that's going to be on the shelf.
Yes.
The UCLA one, it has not.
Right.
They're playing a little better, but they're not going to be in the tournament. So that win doesn't look as good as it could have. And the loss to Texas A&M at home, I think, is starting to diminish because the Aggies have been inconsistent. I know they beat Kentucky, but they don't look like a tournament team right now, or they're sort of waffling.
Right.
So they didn't get enough out of their non-conference. In the league, dropping home games. I was at the Wisconsin game the week before. I don't think they can lose more home games. I mean, they've got to win and protect their home court. And this matchup is going to be tough for them because of the way Northwestern has really turned Welsh Ryan into, I think, one of the top 5 home courts in this league.
Yeah.
Without question. It is in the top 5. Where you want to put it in the first 5? Somewhere, because their only home loss is this anomaly to Chicago State, Purdue, Michigan State, Maryland, and Illinois.
Right.
Those are 4 really good home wins this season. And over the last 2 seasons, they've been really good at home. And Boo Buie, I think, I'm not talking statues here, but I mean, Boo Buie has become...
That's Ray Fells.
I know.
Yeah.
But I will say this, as a long-suffering Red Sox fan in my youth, obviously in this time period, they're winning or had been. I think Boo Buie is the Big Papi. Okay, get this reference?
Yeah.
The Big Papi
Sure, yeah.
for the Wildcats.
Familiar
He's the
with his
most
work. Yeah.
clutch player I think Northwestern has ever had. When the ball is in his hands late, you fully expect him to make that shot.
Yeah.
Because he has.
Well, so we were talking a lot about how great Jameer Young's been in the clutch, and he has been, right? And there's this clutch stat that's really cool that's last 5 minutes of a game where it's a 2-possession game one way or the other. So a game at 6 points or less, and Jameer Young has the most points in the country in that scenario, and it's not even close. He has 68. The next closest player has 54. Boo Buie has 54. So Boo Buie is right behind Jameer Young in terms of power conference players in that category and in those games. So again, part of it is, how many minutes have you played in games like that? He's played 54 clutch minutes this year. In those 54 clutch minutes, he scored 54 points. So he's a point a minute. So he's a 40-point-a-game pace in clutch time. He's shooting 52% in that clutch time, and he's hit 4 of 5 threes.
Here's the deal with Boo Buie.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to look now to the Wooden voters, the AP Player of the Year, Naismith, anyone that does a All-American first 5. There are 2 guards right now in the country that should be on the first team, Boo Buie and R.J. Davis from North Carolina. Those are the 2 best guards in the country here in late January. Zach Edey, he's got a locked on a first-team All-American spot. I think Boo Buie deserves to be on there. Unless something completely collapses, he has earned first-team All-American status here as we head into February.
Interesting. I don't profess to have, I haven't necessarily watched as much as you have of all of these other guys. Sears at Alabama would be an example. Like, that's a guy that everyone talks about as being being an All-American. I have certainly seen him play, but have I watched as much of him as I've watched of Boo Buie?
Winning plays, winning games.
I hear you. Again,
wins.
I'm just saying,
I know.
I don't know that I have the frame of reference you do, so it means more to me coming from you than it would mean.
Well, and I
coming from
hope
me.
people are listening out there
Right.
that vote on these because he deserves it.
Yeah.
No, I mean, obviously he's still got work to do,
Right.
but he deserves it. Now, Bruce Thornton, this is going to be a big test for him.
Yeah. That's a huge game for Ohio State. Again, everyone knows their road struggles. They've lost 13 straight road games. The last one they won was in Evanston last year, and they blew Northwestern
Yes.
off the court.
That was maybe one of Northwestern's worst home games in the last couple of years.
Yeah, it was. Nebraska, Maryland to me is fascinating. Maryland really needs to get this one to stay in that tourney convo. The Huskers are feeling great after taking down Northwestern and Ohio State, but now the question becomes, can you go on the road and can you get a win? But to me, I mean, Nebraska, you look at all the brackets, they're a tournament team right now.
Yeah, it's crazy that if we were to say which team needs it more, and you would have said Maryland.
Oh, it's not even close to Maryland.
I know, but it's crazy when you think about that. That's where we are right now.
Right.
That Nebraska can afford to lose this road game. Their road win at K-State and the manner in which they did it in the non-conference, that is holding up great right now. K-State's one of the best teams in the Big 12. People don't go into Bramlage and win, so they got that on the shelf. So that's huge for them. Maryland, I do believe there's a scenario where they can make their way to being the potential 6th or 7th team to come out of the Big Ten into the NCAA tournament. Not limiting it to 6 or 7, but I'm just saying, if they win all their home games, which is doable based on what is left, if they do that, and if they could just pluck off maybe one other road win, because they already have a road win at Illinois, at Iowa.
Yeah, those are two really good road wins.
And they were right there. I know they didn't get it, but they were right there to potentially win at Northwestern.
Right.
I think that if they get to 11 Big Ten wins, despite the disastrous non-conference down in Asheville that sort of derailed them, I think they're going to be right there competing with other teams in these power leagues to maybe get a bid.
That's the issue. It's not even that they had a bad non-conference. They had a bad few days.
Yes.
Right? They had a really bad few days as they were kind of trying to fit things together. What about Nebraska? I mean, to me, this has been an incredible story here, and it just feels like they have found a groove offensively. I mean, the shooting performance the other night was off the charts against Ohio State. They're so difficult to defend. That's what really strikes me. I mean, Rink Mass can stretch a defense. Tominaga is such a good shooter. And then all these other pieces that they have. I mean, when Hoiberg's open, he can hit a shot. They've got, a lot of different pieces here where you can't say we're just going to focus on Tominaga and we're just going to focus on Mass. There's so many complementary guys who could beat you on this team.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Mass because that was unexpected for him to go off for 34. He had 6 threes. That gives him a whole other dimension. He'd been sort of a get in the grind, sort of just mix it up underneath. He had the ability to step out, and then he was given that opportunity and took advantage of it. Sam Hoiberg, I think, another great glue guy.
Yeah.
We talked about this on the show on Thursday for Nebraska. He's hit big-time shots late in games for Nebraska. And think about this for the Huskers. If they beat Maryland or their next win, they're already going to match last season's win total of 16. They've already snapped losing streaks of 7 or more to Northwestern, Michigan State, Indiana, and Kansas State this season.
Right.
This has been a program-changing season for Fred Hoiberg and the Huskers.
Yeah, how amazing would it be if this is the year they break through and win a tournament game, right? Remember, this is a program that has never won an NCAA tournament game. They haven't been to the tournament in 10 years. It is really shaping up to be a good story, and we'll see whether they can add to it this weekend. It is time for our big stat. It's brought to you by Gatorade. We mentioned Illinois, number 10 in the nation, heading into that home game tomorrow against Indiana. It's the highest Illinois has been ranked when facing the Hoosiers since our buddy Bruce Weber had them at number 7 in 2006. Hoosiers have won the last 3 in the series, most recently winning by 3 in Bloomington about 11 months ago. A lot has changed, though, in that time. And I'd say particularly on the Hoosier side, they're not playing well in this one. They've lost 4 of 6 coming in. As we heard Brad talk about, though, they've had a week to kind of figure things out. So what are you watching in this one?
Yeah, the biggest difference from a year ago is Indiana lost its 2 NBA players.
Yes.
And Illinois, if Hawkins and Shannon can get there, retain theirs.
Right.
So, yeah, much different rosters. I think one of the big things for Indiana of late on the road has been the play of Malik Renew. On the road, he's averaging 17 and 6. So those are positive numbers for him, shooting 37% on threes. And they're going to need him to play like that in Champaign. Ware is going to have to play maybe his best game of the season. Those 2 guys are really going to have to really just cause problems for Hawkins. Make him work more defensively, and he's been one of the best defensive players, certainly not just in the Big Ten, but in the country. On the guard side, there's a clear advantage for Illinois. Whether it's Shannon Domask, Goody, who's now making threes,
right.
Justin Harmon coming off the bench, Ty Rogers. They got size, they got strength, and the guards from Indiana just aren't playing well. Whether it's Johnson, Cupp,
right.
Galloway, they're just not being consistent. And Mike Woodson has spoken about this, and that has been, unfortunately, that's what's dragged them back.
Xavier Johnson has to be better. He's had one really nice game since he came back, but aside from that, and then just kind of the composure part of it that you wonder a little bit about with Indiana. Can you get through a game and not have a flagrant foul and not, kind of do those things that are detrimental to winning? I also just wonder, like X and O wise, and you outline how good Illinois is, and we were talking about with Brad how good their offense is. Indiana's just not guarding people well.
Right.
Sometimes it just comes down to, can you stop them? And it's hard to envision a scenario where Indiana can stop Illinois for 40 minutes or even slow them down.
No, and the quick thing I'll just say, Maryland was able to go into Illinois and defend, and then they've got their inside game that was good enough,
right.
And they've got a guy that can make shots and break you down off the dribble, late game, and Jameer Young. That's what Indiana doesn't have. Jalen Hood-Schifino last year could do that.
Yeah.
He's playing for the Lakers.
Right.
They don't have a player like that in their backcourt that can take the ball in his hands, break you down, make a late basket.
But you said it also, Maryland guards so well.
Yes.
And of course, they pounded it inside. And
I'm just saying
Illinois
that Illinois is not unbeatable at home.
Right. No, I hear
Marquette
you.
won there.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All
right, so let's focus on Minnesota
Not
and Penn
Michigan
State.
State,
Gophers, clearly a better team. I don't think there's any doubt. And yet, here they are. They're mired in this 4-game losing streak. And now you go to Penn State and you think about, teams have lost there, right? Wisconsin lost there in their last home game. Ohio State lost there. They've only played 3 true home games, but the only one of the 3 to win there is Northwestern, and it was nip and tuck. So you look at Minnesota here, and I don't want to say they're in desperation mode because I don't think they are. I still think they're in decent shape, but this is a game they kind of need to get to right the ship, and it's easier said than done.
Yeah, they've played well in spurts. They've just not played as consistently well really in a month. Now, part of that was Elijah Hawkins. He got hurt against Iowa, didn't play against Michigan State, but he came back against Wisconsin. He had 16 points and 9 assists, and they had a great comeback with a chance to tie that game and send it into overtime if Mitchell converts that shot, that sort of runner at the buzzer, and the momentum was trending their way. If that game goes into overtime, I think they beat Wisconsin. I mean, it was really moving in their direction because they came all the way back. So, again, you're right. This is a critical game for them, and I'm not talking about the NCAA tournament. What I think for them is desperately try to get out of Wednesday at the Big Ten tournament. You are the de facto host in the Target Center in Minneapolis. If they can go to Thursday, okay, they're going to have a good crowd, they'll have some momentum, and then you never know whether it's for the NCAA, the NIT, something. But they got to avoid that Wednesday.
Right.
I think that's critical, and they have the ability to do so. They can finish one spot above those bottom 4 if they win a game like this.
Yeah, I think I have higher aspirations for them. I really do. I mean, I hear everything you're saying, and I'm
not saying they can't make the
right.
tournament.
No. I know you're not. I know you're
Small
not.
goals.
Right. But they're much better.
Yes.
But I think you look like personnel wise, and I mean they've got some guys who are tough to deal with.
Well, I think
Dawson
Penn State
Garcia,
doesn't have an answer for Payne if he's healthy.
Yeah, right. No, I mean, inside is where Minnesota has a clear advantage in this game, and that's just how Penn State's roster was put together. It's challenging. There's a lot on Wahhab's shoulders, particularly on the defensive end, and a lot of different players to deal with for Minnesota. Back on Big Ten today, it is Suits and Sneakers Week, a joint effort of the American Cancer Society and the National Association of Basketball Coaches. Brad Underwood will be wearing these shoes tomorrow against Indiana, honoring people close to the Illinois program affected by cancer. This year's theme is Set the Screen, reminding everyone the importance of getting screened for cancer. You can go to coaches.cancer.org for a screening center near you. A simple message, but a really important one. Cancer screening saves lives. Let's get to our big interview. The incoming chair of the Coaches versus Cancer National Council, Illinois basketball coach Brad Underwood, is with us. Coach, those shoes are really cool, and I know they're really meaningful as well. There are 30 names on them, so I'm not going to ask you to tell us every story, but are there a couple on there that you would want to highlight of people close to the Illinois basketball family who you are singling out, who have been through a challenge with cancer?
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things we wanted to do. It's the 30th anniversary of Coaches versus Cancer, so we sought out through our players, through our coaching staff, to get 30 names, and we highlighted those on those shoes, and it's much more than me. It's much more than a head coach who wears a suit. It's about our whole program, and it just goes to show how important the screening piece is in this. Quay Jones on our staff, you see his name on there. Leukemia when he was young. Cindy Burnside, my sister-in-law, is another one that's dealt with it, and we can go on down the list, and it's so important. The screening process, to the early detection, helps eliminate it, helps in the fight against it, and I'm so honored to take over for Lon as the head of Coaches versus Cancer. So honored what the NABC, everybody involved, the American Cancer Society are doing to help eliminate something that's it's time for it to go. It's time for us to be able to solve the cure for cancer, and millions of viewers out there on this week watching games, and it brings attention to it, and I'm extremely proud to be a part of it.
Give us a sense of the scope of CVC, and this is the second time we've had you on this season to talk about Coaches versus Cancer, because you were on earlier, really kind with your time. There was a great auction earlier this year that CVC raised a ton of money, again, for cancer research. You came on the program and were a part of that. I know there are golf tournaments. Like, give people a sense. You mentioned 30 years of Coaches versus Cancer. Like, what has that, like, is there a dollar figure you can tell us, and increased screening? Like, what tangibly has happened here with this CVC effort?
Well, we're north of $155 million raised by Coaches versus Cancer, and the attention that we've been able to do, and it's more the involvement of coaches and what they're doing, not just on the national level with suits and sneakers, but what they're doing in their communities, and what they're doing in terms of raising money, but most importantly, raising awareness. And no one is able to escape the touch of cancer through friends, family, coworkers, whatever it may be. And if we can not just do it this week, but at our events, whether they're golf events or they're fundraisers or their auctions, whatever they are, that we do that, we keep bringing cancer and the fight and the screening and all the research and all the positive things that are happening in the fight against cancer. And we do that throughout the course of a year. There's so many coaches out there involved, and officials and high school coaches, and it's been really fun to be a part of raising $155 million north of that, and continuing to fight and bring recognition in this fight.
The money has been amazing, and I just think it's really imperative before we leave this topic just to reinforce to people, please get screened. That should be your biggest takeaway from Coaches versus Cancer Suits and Sneakers Week. Please get screened, and again, coaches.cancer.org to find out how to get screened near you. Coach, let's talk about your team. Offensively, the thing that stood out to me this year is how much you've improved on that end. I'm interested. Look, your personnel's changed significantly, and so that has something to do with it, no doubt. How much of it is personnel? How much of it is X and O stuff? I mean, you've made no bones about, hey, we're playing some booty ball this year. Damask has been a big part of that. Like, how much is X and O? How much is personnel?
Well, a little bit of both. I think my junior college days, Dave, helped.
Yeah.
I think in terms of the portal, we've been able to add 3 guys that fit what we're doing. I think at one time we were 71 in offensive efficiency on KenPom. I think today we're 6 or 7. It's been efficient for us. It's been effective. It's eliminated some turnovers. We're still playing really fast in transition, finding that mix, and it just fits our personnel, who we are, and it's become an identity for us. We've had to adjust midstream with that. It's not per se the same stuff we're running last year. It's completely different, but it does fit. And we found a nice balance. We've had games with 6 guys in double figures, it's just been really solid for us.
You know, you mentioned the transfer portal, and I think it's really fascinating, this trying to predict, right? This seems to me to be the biggest challenge. I'm interested in your take on this because you have had such success with it. Quincy Guerrier was a high-level guy who everyone's known about for a long time, and came from a high major program. But, you know, Marcus Damask is a mid-major guy. Justin Harmon is technically, it's a low-major program that he came from. So, although they've obviously had nice success here in recent years, but I guess my point or my question is, how do you predict? Because we have seen guys who are great mid-major players come into the Big Ten and play really well, and we've seen guys come into the Big Ten and not play as well. How hard is it to try to figure out when you're watching a guy on tape whether or not he'll translate?
Yeah, it goes more than just the tape. You know, there was a different component with Marcus. You know, he had a season where he only played 10 games. He was just shy of being a 2,000-point scorer. And then when you factor in the character and the hard work and what he stood for, he was a great fit. Justin is a great example of a guy who we actually saw play in high school, but just got better. And we set out with the purpose to find older, more mature guys. You throw Quincy in there. We recruited him 3 times before we actually got to coach him. So it was that part was fortunate for us. But they're all super high character guys. They all work and have a component of work and that we knew allowed them to fit into our locker room. And then we were very honest with them as to what their roles would be and where they were going to be, what we needed them for. Having Terrence, having Coleman, having Luke Goody back, Dane Deja, you know, we knew what we were looking for. So, you know, the character piece was a big part of it. And then obviously we got older and we found guys who were very skilled on the offensive side.
You mentioned Terrence. He's been back for 2 games. Offensively, there have been some struggles. He's 1 of 10 from 3, just as for instance. What has been the biggest challenge in terms of getting him reintegrated?
Yeah, just that. It just takes time. You know, I think that we forget sometimes that you don't just flip a competitive switch and it comes on. And, you know, he missed a month practicing with his team, being a part of that. And you know, I know we'll continue to grow and do that. He's electric in transition. I think he's the premier player in the country in the open court. Defensively, you know, we need him to be the best perimeter defender in the country. He can be that. And so it's just taken a little bit of time, and I feel great about that because he's such an unbelievable teammate that'll afford itself. And he had his best practice yesterday, and you know, we're in a hard stretch here with not a lot of practice time, but he's been very, very good and very diligent.
Coach, we saw at Northwestern the other night. It's not going to be easy on the road, frankly. I mean, it's never easy on the road, but there's a lot swirling around with everything that happened with Terrence. And so I'm just curious, like, how have you addressed that component of it with him and with your team?
Yeah, and I think the one thing that it's really, really hard on the road anyway. It was an incredible environment, a high-level game, maybe as high-level a game as we've had all season. We know how good Northwestern is at home, and you know, this group is extremely connected. We've done a really good job of eliminating kind of the outside noise and not getting wrapped up in too much that goes on, controlling our locker room. We've really tried to simplify it that. You know, it's amazing. Most people don't hear what goes on during a game when you're involved in the game. I think that's that's fine. I think that's great. And, we just go out and play. And, it was an incredible atmosphere at Northwestern. It was, one of the best I've seen in our league. And yet, we got the ball and a shot to try to win it. And I think that shows the focus and dedication of our guys in a game that was awfully high level.
It really was high level. It was a thrilling game to watch. I know you got a big game coming up tomorrow. I want to conclude with this. You've got Indiana coming in. They're in a bit of desperation mode, as you know, Coach, but they certainly have a lot of talent. They have a really good front court. What do you guys need to do to get back on track, and what's kind of your message to your guys heading into that game against the Hoosiers?
Yeah, I think the one thing that we've been able to and tried to do is we have, there's no doubt Indiana's front court is extremely good, and we've got to go out and play, and it's not you don't want to let one turn into two, and you've got to go play hard. They've had a break here, and they've had some time off, and I'm sure they've gotten healthy in terms of the Ware kid being back. But again, every game in this league's a monster. You don't put any more value on one than the other. You have to go out and play extremely hard. You have to go out and play extremely physical, and you have to execute. And if you don't do that, no matter home or road, you got an opportunity to get beat. So it's what makes this league the best league in the country, and the mental part is just as important as the physical part.
Well, Coach, we'll look forward to watching that one tomorrow. Again, I just want to thank you for everything you've done for Coaches versus Cancer. It's been a really meaningful partnership for us here at the Big Ten Network. These last couple of years, we'll continue supporting it in whatever way we can, but we always appreciate how generous you are with your time. Thanks a lot.
Likewise, Dave, and appreciate all that you do and support, and looking forward to taking over for Lon Kruger's ahead of this, and doing more great things to keep this fight on.
It couldn't be in better hands. Thanks, Coach. It is a huge Friday night wrestling doubleheader this evening. First, Michigan and Ohio State lock up in a rivalry matchup. Then number 2 Iowa collides with Illinois. Coverage begins at 7 Eastern. It is presented by Cliff Keen Athletic, only on the Big Ten Network and the Fox Sports app. Who better to break this down for us than Shane Sparks? And the answer, of course, is nobody. And so Shane is with us right now. He's going to be calling that Ohio State-Michigan matchup. He is in Columbus. So let's start there. You've got 2 top 15 programs going at it. Pretty compelling here, Shane. What stands out about this matchup?
First and foremost, Dave, thank you much. Always great to talk wrestling with you. This matchup, these two teams met. Ohio State, Michigan, to me, it's college sports' best rivalry. They met for the first time on January 26th, 1924, 100 years to the day.
Wow.
So this matchup should be a lot of fun. Michigan has won 3 of the last 4. Ohio State won last year. Few matchups to keep an eye on. 133 pounds, one of those young bucks, Nick Bouzakis, 19-5 on the season, 15 bonus point victories, wrestling Dylan Ragusin. Dylan Ragusin, they pulled his red shirt a couple of weeks ago. He's been spectacular. The NCAA Wrestler of the Week, coming off a great weekend last weekend when he pinned Aaron Nagawa, Penn State. He's undefeated, 18-0. Something's got to give at 133. 141 pounds, Sergio Lemley from Michigan, 4-time state champion. He is a true freshman. I've really liked how he competes. He's got a tall task against Jesse Mendez of Ohio State. These two guys, both Indiana products. Looking for that one at 141. 174 pounds, Shane Griffith from Michigan, multi-time All-American, of course, won a national title for Stanford in 2021. He's going to be wrestling Rocco Welsh. Welsh is a true freshman. That matchup stands out, and we should have a good one at heavyweight as well. Nick Feldman, Ohio State, Lucas Davis in Michigan. When you look at these 10 matchups, we might see 17, 18 ranked guys and 8 to 9 ranked matchups. So should be just a lot of fun to watch this, a competitive duel, I expect.
How about Iowa and Illinois? I think on the flip side, that probably doesn't feel like a particularly competitive duel, just given how good Iowa is. It's really not a comment on Illinois. It's just that Iowa is fabulous, as we know. They've kind of owned it through the years. But even if who wins the dual meet might not be totally up for grabs here, always so much intrigue within matches. So give people a sense, if they're going to watch that duel, what are some of the matches they should be focused on?
Dave, I just first and foremost appreciate your breakdown, because you are absolutely right. Looking big picture, looking at the dual meet, it might not be super significant. However, there are some matchups, two to keep an eye on. 149 pounds, Cannon Webster from Illinois. He beat Dylan D'Amelio a little while back from Ohio State, and All-American for the Buckeyes. He is really good. 149 with Webster, and then with Caleb Rachi from Iowa. He's really done a good job for the Hawkeyes. And then at 174, Patrick Kennedy, he's up from 165. He was a Big Ten finalist at 165, and then Mikey Caliendo comes in from North Dakota State. Because of that, Patrick Kennedy bumps up to 174 pounds, and he will wrestle the two-time Midlands champion, the leader of this Illinois team, Edmund Roos. So those are two matches that, could have some ramifications for both Big Ten seeding and at the national tournament.
This is a series, again, that Iowa's just dominated. They've won 12 straight, and they are so good. I mean, they have 5 of the top 10 wrestlers in their weight classes in their starting lineup. So pretty amazing group that they have put together. And speaking of amazing groups, Penn State's got one too, and we've got a wrestling doubleheader on the network on Sunday. You can see the top-ranked Nittany Lions squaring off with Maryland, then Nebraska and Wisconsin. That's a top 20 matchup. Shane will be on the call for that one as well. Coverage begins noon Eastern, presented by Cliff Keen Athletic, only here on the Big Ten Network and the Fox Sports app. Okay, let's start with number one, Penn State. There are few sure things in sports, as we talk about, but they're pretty close. I mean, they've won 50 straight dual meets, which is really ridiculous. I know a lot of people are pointing to 197 in this. Aaron Brooks against Jackson Smith. Give us a breakdown of those two.
Jackson Smith has done a really good job. Alex Clemson, Maryland, they got 5 or 6 ranked guys. They're a building program. Jackson Smith, he's a Georgia native. He is going to bring a toughness, a grit, and physicality. He's not going to back down. Aaron Brooks, of course, trying to win his 4th individual national title. So it is a tall task for Jackson Smith, but it's an opportunity. I mean, he's going to have a really good gauge as to where he stands on the national scene when you are going up against one of the best to ever do it in Aaron Brooks. So that should be a fun match to watch. Like I said before, it's an opportunity. Jackson Smith's not going to give an inch. And mention Penn State. You said it, Dave. 50 straight since the start of the 2015-26 season. They are 115-2 in dual meets. And we saw last week, Mitchell Messenbrink at 165 pounds. He put on a show in that dual meet on Friday night when he beat 3-time All-American Kamamina, Michigan, 12-1. And another guy at 125 pounds, Braden Davis, he wasn't ranked 3-4 weeks ago. Now he's ranked top 10, and he is the only 125-pounder in the country in the rankings that is undefeated. So Penn State, maybe a couple of question marks coming in at some weight classes. Those questions have been answered at 165 and 125. They are better than advertised, and that's saying something.
They are a juggernaut, and they have completely dominated Maryland. The Terps last won a dual meet against Penn State in 1965. Which is pretty hard to wrap your head around. Nebraska and Wisconsin, I said you're going to be on the call for that one. The Huskers are coming off a really good win over Minnesota, kind of some drama at the end of that one. So give us a sense now for them as they head into this match with the Badgers. And this feels like one where perhaps it's more evenly matched.
Absolutely. Nebraska, got to give a shout out to their heavyweight, Harley Andrews, came down to that final match in the dual meet. He hits a lateral drop in a 7-7 match late, wins the match for himself, and then ices the W for Nebraska. In this matchup with Nebraska, a few matches I'm looking forward to. 125, Caleb Smith from Nebraska, Eric Barnett from Wisconsin. Barnett with a pin on the Big Ten Network over Brendan McCrone of Ohio State last Sunday in like 32 seconds. Caleb Smith coming off a tough loss against Patrick McKee last Friday, so he's got to have a bounce-back match. 174 pounds, Max Miller from Wisconsin. He's ranked against Bubba Wilson. And then at 184 pounds, maybe the featured matchup in this dual meet, Shane Legal from Wisconsin. He's the Midlands champion. I think he's won 12 in a row. And Lenny Pinto from Nebraska, a tough loss last Friday night to Isaiah Salazar of Minnesota. So again, you got to have a short memory. It's the Big Ten. They're all tough. Every single weekend when you toe the line, it's going to be against a really good guy. Got to have a short memory. You smell the roses. You appreciate the victories, but you can't let those losses keep you down for long because you got to turn the page. There's going to be another stud coming your next time out. So Should be a fun match. Nebraska and Mark Manning having another really solid season. They're always consistent. Nebraska is always consistent, and that's something I appreciate with Mark Manning. He's been there for a couple of decades and has done a really good job in Lincoln.
Hey, before we let you go, Shane, we made such a big deal out of last weekend. The numbers were off the charts. I mean, so many people were watching the Big Ten Network last Friday for that triple header. Was there a biggest takeaway for you, like something that happened maybe that you didn't expect?
Watching Mitchell Messenbrink beat Cam Amin, a 3-time All-American for Michigan, 12-1. I mean, that was a wow moment. I mean, his tenacity, just relentless on the wrestling mat, taking territory. I mean, that really stood out to me. And then I just appreciated the overall night of the Big Ten Network. First time in network history, a triple header. I mean, I think just sitting back when it was all said and done, just felt a lot of gratitude for that night. And then I look at guys like Rick Pizzo. Him and I do Big Ten Wrestling and Beyond. And Dave, I love talking wrestling with you. I mean, you guys just do a really good job. What stands out to me as much as anything is just the pride that the Big Ten Network takes in covering the sports. And if I could just throw this plug in here real quick, Dave, a couple of really good matches tomorrow. Rutgers, Minnesota, and then Indiana, Purdue. Those are on Saturday on Big Ten Plus. If you are a Big Ten wrestling fan, Big Ten Plus is a non-negotiable. You get to see all those matches on demand. I live on Big Ten Plus. So I also really appreciate the job that Big Ten Plus does, bringing all the other action that's not on linear Big Ten Network.
It is tremendous. It is a must for Big Ten fans. And as you say, wrestling is one of the sports that is very much featured on it. There is no easier job in the world than just winding Shane Sparks up and letting him go. So much wrestling knowledge. Really appreciate it. Thanks a lot, Shane, and we'll look forward to the wrestling all weekend here on the Big Ten Network as well as on Big Ten Plus.
Thank you so much, Dave. Always good to talk wrestling with you. Be well.